Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Kevin Gregg. Thanks for joining us. This is a show that is dedicated to helping you get your creative work done, find your audience for your work, and also get it out there so you can start bringing in income. Here's the thing that's going to happen at some point in your creative life, in your creative career. They're not going to be buying your stuff. They're not going to want your stuff. No one's going to hire you. Yeah, you're just not going to be getting any creative work at one point. Good. What do you mean, Kevin? What do you mean by that? I'm going to unpack that. I think that you run into certain parts of your creative life where things don't exactly go the way that you want them to. And I think it's actually a call for a couple of things. It's a call for reinvention, and it's a call of taking a look at what it is that you're doing. It's also a call to figure out, all right, what do I do in order to pay the rent, keep the lights on, put food on the table, but also not give up my creative work. We're going to unpack this in just a little bit on the show. If this is your first time here, like I said at the top of the show, I help people get their creative work done. And the best way that I do that is over at my community, Working Creatives, which is on the school platform. You'll see the link to that site in the description below. You can join the hundreds of other people that are getting their creative work done, getting it to their audience, finding their audience, and also learning how to generate income and revenue from their creative work. It's a whole bunch of people on the same path. So if you want to be around other people that are actively doing it, that's the place to go. Join us in the description below. I have been here before. There have been several times in my creative career, and there were probably going to be several other of these, where all of a sudden what I was doing and where everything was churning along and going great with my creative work, and then all of a sudden the well dries up. The offers aren't there. The work isn't available. And all of a sudden you're in a moment of going, whoa, 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 what do I do? What do I do? I'm thinking of like three specific time periods that this happened. When I first started getting into commercial work as an actor, I was working down at Disney and I was doing a lot of stuff. And then all of a sudden I had a number of commercials that came my way, and it was awesome. You know, as my wife and I joked about it, I became a thousandaire, and it was great checks that were coming in. And I thought that that was the way it was going to be. And I was having a little bit of a dust up with some middle management that was down at Disney. And I went, fine, I'm out of here. I'm going to go start doing commercial work full time. And I jumped off and everything dried up for me. And I think that there were a number of reasons behind that. It wasn't like everything went upside down the commercial industry. I think it had a lot to do with me and where my mindset was. The fact is that I'd saved up, tens of thousands of dollars, and I had a nice little cushion. And so I was going out there kind of going, oh yeah, I can take my time and do this. And then as that supply started dwindling and getting lower and lower and lower, then I'd start getting a little bit more panicked, and I'd book something, and then all of a sudden I would book something, but then I'd be cut out of the commercial, and then I was going into these auditions, and it was almost like a little panic. It was like they could kind of smell it on me. I'm just like kind of going, no, we're good, we're not going to do it. I remember having that moment where I was like going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I remember another moment when I'd gone back to Disney. I'll go back to that in a second. I'd gone back to Disney, and then I'd end up working, and I ended up getting work, and it was great. But I knew that finally there was the major transition that was coming for me, which is I needed to stop doing in-park performance, and I needed to make the jump to becoming, a live show director or a creative consultant and writer for the company. And for whatever reason, they just said, well, if you do that, you got to cut off all ties. You got to make a clean break. Once you made a clean break for the company, then you can come back and try to apply and see if we have any freelance jobs that are available. And when I jumped off, there was nothing. I had a little bit of a cushion that was there, but I knew that I had to start generating some income. And at first, there was no freelance stuff that was offered. I was actually told, well, if you do this, you're showing us that you're in it. And then once you make the jump, then you can come back and we'll start offering you some stuff. and they didn't start offering me stuff. And as a matter of fact, it was few and far between. And there was a time period where I had to do things like I was doing an usher job at a live theater performance, at a live venue where my son was a manager, and he was my manager while I was doing this. I'm, in my 40s doing this. My son is in my 20s, and my manager is, I'm, having to do what I've got to do. And then fortunately, a little while after that, a lot of the offerings and stuff started coming my way, and I started kind of generating income for us, which was amazing. Then the other time that it hit was with COVID. When COVID hit, and I had, pretty steady freelance gigs I was doing with the Walt Disney Company. And when COVID hit and they cut that stuff off, I was the first to go. I remember making a phone call and kind of going, hey, there's some stuff here that maybe I can stretch out for a few months. And I was immediately told, no, we're cutting all budgets right now, and I'm afraid we don't have any work for you immediately. And I was like, whoa, I got to figure out what to do. And I literally started doing DoorDash. I was in a car driving around just delivering meals, and then finally getting to a point where I was just going, I don't know if this is what I should be doing. So here's the thing. And I'll bring you the resolution of some of those moments, some of those situations in a moment. But you get to these moments, and we have to realize this, is that life is a continual change, that there's always going to be ebbs and flows. Things are going to come. There's going to be full days and lean days. That's part of what happens. And actually, that's part of what happens in life. As much as people think that, I just want to get a steady, regular job, I have to tell you this. And this is not to negate it, but the concept of going, all I need to do is just get into a regular job that I can stay in. And if I just have a regular 9 to 5 that gives me a great, high 5 salary figure, and then I can just ride that out for the next, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Okay. That doesn't even exist. It doesn't. There's a lulling into it of saying, don't worry, if you hang out here, it'll be great. But there's cuts that happen all the time, or things that happen inside organizations all the time. Life is filled with these ebbs and flows. It's not to be negative. It's to be actually realistic that this stuff happens. The same thing happens for your creative work. You're going to have moments where things are just churning, and you'll probably make a few sales on stuff, or people are watching your stuff. It's great. And then all of a sudden, nobody's interested in your stuff, right? And you can't seem to land a job or a gig, or nobody's interested in what you're doing. So what do you do in those scenarios? You have an opportunity, and this is not to dismiss any of the things I'm about to say. You have two major opportunities. Number one is going, okay, I think I've got to pivot. I've got to pivot or rework this or figure out something. Or this could be both, yes and. You may also be in a time period where you're going to have to figure out something else that's going to have to fill the coffers and keep money flowing in while you're doing this, while you're also still doing your creative work. This does not have to be an exchange of I either do my creative work or then I'm just doing a job. And it's maybe you could also do a job where you're figuring out, how do I put in the least amount of my, how do I do this so that I'm doing a job well, but it's also not taking all of my mind, heart, and soul, and that I'm still leaving a compartmentalized part of that so that that's also going into my art part-time. So that I'm also continuing to build that while I've got to do a job that I need in order to fill this gap. Because this is not about, and this goes back to my theory about the starving artist. You are an artist regardless of whatever it is that you are doing to bring money in. If you've got money coming in from your art, that's amazing. That's the best case scenario that you're doing. Congratulations, that's amazing. You are also going to have lean periods where you're going to have to figure out something else, where you're bringing in something else with the money while you're also still working on your projects and waiting to see what's going to resonate with an audience or what's going to hit. All right? Now, let's go back to my examples I did when I talked about when I left first, when I was doing the commercial work, and then all of a sudden the commercial work dried up. I had at that moment because I hadn't burned all of my bridges at Disney when I left. I was just at a point where I went, well, what can I do? And I thought, well, I could try to go back and do this theme park acting work. I know that they're still looking for people. They still do auditions. And I ended up making a phone call to the two right key people that ended up saying, we would love to have you back. Come on back. There were a couple of people there that didn't want me back. Especially, I had a middle manager I was on his target. As a matter of fact, at one point he tried to negate me coming back, but thank God for the people that were working on my side. They just went, no, we need him, we can use him, he does great work. Once I got back into the situation and I was working, and it wasn't even a tail between my legs. It was just like, this is what it is. I have to come back here, and this is what I can do at the moment. Once I came back, and that pressure of not having to freak out about, the regular income or whatever that stuff was, at least I had some regular stuff that was coming in. Then I started hitting with commercials again. All of a sudden, commercial work started coming my way because I didn't have the extra, I got to make this, but if I don't make this right, art cannot thrive in a situation where you're like, oh gosh, this has got to work, because if this doesn't work, I won't be able to live, right? If you're in that scenario, that's not a good thing. So if you're a creative and you've had creative opportunities and creative work that's there, first recommendation I would do, take a look back around and look at people that you've worked with creatively and see if maybe there might be job openings. Even if it's something where you go, hey, do you need me doing gopher work or getting the coffee or sweeping the floor or doing whatever in a creative space, then awesome. Try to put yourself back into a place where you're at least around other creative people. That's number one. Number two, you may have a situation where you don't have that option and you have to go, okay, I guess I got to get something that, I'm going to have to do it. For example, when I was doing the usher work, it was like, well, it's just me being an usher, right? Not making a lot of money, but at least I'll be in a creative venue. And yes, it's more like, doorman stuff or almost like security work, but it's like, okay, I got to do what I got to do in order to keep income generating. That's fine. Then shortly after that, a break came my way, right? There's something that happens when you do this. Or the other option that happened with me when I got into the DoorDash thing, it was very, very clear for me that once I was doing the DoorDash and I did it for several weeks, I was like going, this is a lot. This is exhaustive. This is time consuming. This is taking up my mind. This is taking up my energy. I don't have a lot. I've got to figure out something. I've got to figure out how to do this. I've got to figure out how to do something else. And because I was put into a pressured scenario where it's like, yeah, I got to make money, but I can't be making money doing this, immediately my brain started working. The Holy Spirit, God started working and started giving me ideas like, well, what could I do? And that's when I started looking on things like Upwork to see if there was anybody out there that needed a writer or stuff. And that ended up leading to me doing helping out with that. That's how I met my friend Doug Riggle, who I ended up, writing the book and putting that stuff out because I was hired by him through Upwork. He found me through Upwork, and then we started interviewing, and then we ended up becoming fast friends. And next thing you know, I've got this other channel and stuff that came from it. All right. Also, during that time period, I was also able to get a creative director position with a math software company because of my background with Disney, right? I would never have thought in a million years, a math software company, how could I do that? But all of a sudden, I could see a gap, and they also could see a gap, that by using my creative skills, it fit in with what they were trying to do with reach out for their services and their program. So in that moment, I get to use creative problem solving and creative ideation to figure out like, okay, I've got some abilities and skills and talents. What can I do that also can fit in? And I also started learning new skills while I was doing it at the same time. So here's the thing. I'm saying all of this because I know that there's a lot of people that are out there that you're at a creative thing and you're saying to yourself, it has to be all it has to be only just creative work. And if I'm not just doing creative work, then that's it. It's all done. Well, first of all, you're always going to be doing creative work regardless, even if you have to take crappy jobs, then you take crappy jobs, and while you're taking the crappy jobs, you're also working on the other stuff, and you're also thinking to yourself, how can I get this out there? How could I also start marketing this and maybe trying to make at least, could I at least try to make $100 a month like doing this, or maybe $300 a month or whatever while I'm doing the crappy job? You need to look at this as your vocation that you are doing. It would be as if you were in school and then all of a sudden you're like, you're somebody that's in school and you have to have a job at the same time while you're doing it. You're learning and you got a job that's paying the bills, but you're learning and adapting and trying to apply this stuff so that eventually the wave will come back around, or whatever's going on will come back around, and somebody will scoop you up and go, yeah, oh my gosh, you know what? Actually, we do need you. Holy smokes. We've needed somebody like you for a long time. Or you know what? That thing that you've been putting out there online or on social media, we like that. Can you do more of that for us? But I think that's the big thing that I just want to say here is, all right, you may come to periods where, your creative work isn't the thing that is paying the bills in the moment. Okay, then you're going to figure out something else that you can do in the meantime that will help continue generating income, but you still continue to do your creative work. You still do it. You may have to allot it differently, but by gosh, you have got to set aside that time and go, but every single day I'm still allotting my 18 minutes a day or my hour a day, whatever, and I'm still creating that stuff. I'm still doing that. So that's what you need, ladies and gentlemen. And I totally get it. And what will happen is it's going to be a switch that goes off in your mind. You're going to have a moment where something's going to happen and like going, I got to be making money. I got to do something. Okay. And it's not a failure if you've got to do something else to make money temporarily or for a little time period. It's okay. But keep on track with your creative work in the meantime. All right. That's all I got to say on this one. Again, take a look at the link. You can join us in Working Creatives. We got a bunch of people that are doing the same thing that are over there. We got people in different various stages, right? People that are doing different jobs at the time while they're also trying to make their creative work, right? So once you get on over there, if you've got the thing of like going, yes, okay, I've got to do other stuff while I'm doing this, but I'm going to keep showing up and doing my work, and I'm going to keep being around a bunch of other people that are also on the same path, then join us over at Working Creatives, and we'll get it done. All right? All right, thanks for joining us on this episode. Onwards, upwards, God bless you, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.